Hey, my name is Lance. If you're watching this, I want to talk to the part of you that's exhausted, the part that's been hiding, performing, and pretending to have it all together, while inside, you're crumbling. I want to talk about something deeper than addiction. I want to talk about the hero's journey you've been putting off. Because the truth is, you've been able to delay your purpose for years, thanks to distractions, sex, porn, chasing attention. They gave you just enough comfort to survive, but not enough to grow. You see, the addiction was never really about sex, it was about control, about finding a way to stop feeling, even if just for a moment. Porn, fantasy, hookups, even scrolling dating apps, they gave you that hit of certainty, that illusion that you were in charge, that you were desired, that you could escape the noise in your head. But underneath the pleasure was pain. Underneath the control was fear, because distraction was your survival tool. And as long as you could keep your mind busy, you didn't have to face the emptiness. Every addict plays a role. Maybe you were the charming guy, the one who could always make her laugh, always win approval. Maybe you were the rebel, proving you couldn't be controlled. Maybe you were the rescuer, chasing broken people because saving them made you feel worthy. That one was me. That role once made sense. It kept you safe. It earned you love. But now it feels unbearable because deep down, you've outgrown it. You've been trying to live a life using an old operating system. And every time you act out, it's like you're replaying a movie you don't even believe in anymore. Let's go deeper. What you're really losing isn't just the habit, it's the paradigm that once made you feel safe. For years, that paradigm said, if I perform, I'm loved. If I control, I'm safe. If I please everyone, I'll never be abandoned. If I chase pleasure, I can avoid pain. That old system gave you predictability. You knew its rules. You can manage your pain by numbing it. But when that paradigm starts to fall apart, it feels like death. Because you're not just losing habits, you're losing your home base of identity. You're standing in the rubble of who you thought you were, wondering who's left when the mask comes off. That's why recovery feels so terrifying. You're not just quitting porn, you're quitting the false safety that porn represented. The grief you feel isn't weakness, it's withdrawal from illusion. You're losing the safety built on control, so you can finally find a safety built on truth. The further you go into your addiction, the more expensive it becomes, not just financially, emotionally, and spiritually. The highs get shorter, the shame lasts longer, the emptiness grows louder. You start to realize the strategy doesn't work anymore. The thing that once gave you relief now only gives you guilt. And that's when you hit the breaking point. That sacred moment when your soul whispers, I can't do this anymore. But listen, that's not failure, that's awakening. Every hero's journey begins when the old world collapses. Frodo couldn't stay in the Shire. Luke couldn't stay on the farm. Neo couldn't stay in the Matrix. And you can't keep living in distraction. You can try to go back. Maybe you've relapsed. Maybe you've promised yourself 100 times this is the last time. I know I did, and it was thousands. But that voice inside won't shut up because your soul doesn't want the old life anymore. The addiction was never the enemy, it was the invitation. Every urge, every relapse, every bit of shame is just the universe saying there's something in you that is aching to be born. Seeing the real addiction. You're not addicted to sex. I'll say that again. We are not addicted to sex. We are addicted to pain. We're addicted to feeling like dog shit. Because when we feel like shit, we have a reason to escape. When you hurt yourself, you get to predict the outcome. You get to decide when you'll feel bad. But love requires surrender. Purpose requires trust. The old self doesn't know how to trust, only how to chase. So the more you chase, the more you suffer. And the more you suffer, the more you chase. Until one day you realize you've been addicted not to pleasure, but to punishment. And for me, that was because it felt familiar. And that's the moment you start to wake the fuck up. This is the dark night of the soul. Everything you built on the false paradigm starts to crumble. The mask falls off. The provider, the performer, the porn hero, the savior. You might feel depressed, empty, lost, but hear me. That's not the end. That's rebirth. You're watching the old character die. The one who thought he had to earn love. The one who thought he had to chase validation. And in the ashes of that death, a new man begins to rise. The man who doesn't need to perform. The man who doesn't hide. The man who can finally be seen. Fully, honesty, and completely. When you stop chasing, something amazing happens. Your energy returns. The same drive that once fueled your addiction now fuels your mission. The same hunger that once made you seek fantasy now makes you pursue meaning. You realize you weren't weak, you were misdirected. You had all this energy, all this fire, but it was poured into the wrong container. Now that fire becomes purpose. You start building instead of hiding. You start creating instead of consuming. Your pain becomes wisdom. Your story becomes medicine. You finally see the storm was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to root you. I tell my clients, you can be the storm or you can be the oak tree. The storm is chaos, the urges, the guilt, the highs, the crashes. The oak tree is grounded. It sways, but it doesn't break. For years, you've been addicted to being the storm. You thought intensity was aliveness. It met your needs. And we'll talk about that in another episode later on. Stay tuned. But true power comes from stillness. The oak tree doesn't chase approval. It doesn't perform. It just is. And from that grounded place, you can finally build something lasting. Love, health, meaning. That's what it means to grow roots. Once you face yourself and make it out to the other side, everything changes. You start to realize your story can save others. Every scar becomes a map. Every relapse becomes a lesson. Every tear becomes truth. You start to speak differently. You start to walk differently. You stop trying to convince people you've changed because your presence says it for you. That's the real hero's journey. Coming home to yourself and then lighting the path for others. So if you're watching this and you feel broken, ashamed, helpless, I want you to know those were my addictions, my real addictions underneath the sex. I spent way more time in pain than I ever did pleasure. I want you to know you are not broken. You're becoming. You're losing the paradigm or the roadmap that once made you feel safe because it's too small for who you're becoming. You're not losing safety, you're upgrading it. You're not losing identity, you're finding your authentic self. You're not losing control, you're gaining freedom. The pain you feel right now is the initiation into your purpose. You've just been playing the wrong role, and now it's time to write a new one. I'm Lance from Intimacy Breakthrough, and if this hits deep, maybe it's because your soul already knows it's time. Remember, the storm ends the moment you choose to grow roots. Like and subscribe. And if you want to reach out to me, my email is conversationswithlance@gmail.com. Hope you have a blessed day. I'll see you in the next one.